Everyone talks about collapse. The debt. The dollar. The military overextension. The 7 stages that killed Spain, Britain, Soviet Union, and the stages the United States has already completed. But no one talks about what comes after. Because after collapse is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one. And that new story has its own pattern, its own stages, its own winners and losers. History has shown us exactly how it plays out, every single time. This is stage 8, the stage no one tells you about. Because if they did, you'd stop being afraid of collapse and start preparing for what it creates. When we picture empire collapse, we picture the end of everything. Darkness, rubble, a world that simply stops. That's not what happens. When Rome fell in 476 AD, the city didn't vanish. The roads were still there. The aqueducts still ran for decades. The people were still there. Life continued, but the organizing system had collapsed. And into that vacuum, something new rushed in. The Catholic Church, feudal kingdoms, the Byzantine Empire, the Italian city-states that would eventually spark the Renaissance. Rome's collapse didn't end Western civilization, it reorganized it. Violently, painfully across generations, but it reorganized it. The same thing happened with Spain. When the Spanish Empire collapsed, the wealth didn't disappear. It moved. Dutch merchants absorbed it. English traders captured the trade routes. French banking houses absorbed the debt. The world Spain had built, the global trade networks, the Atlantic shipping lanes, the agricultural systems of the Americas, all of it survived. Spain just stopped being the one who controlled it. Britain is the clearest example. When Britain lost its empire after World War II, the pound collapsed. The territories were gone. But the English language remained the global standard. British law remained the framework for international commerce. British culture, literature, music, education spread further after the empire than during it. The Beatles conquered the world in the 1960s. Right as Britain was becoming militarily irrelevant, the empire died. The influence didn't. Here's what that tells us. Collapse is not destruction. It's transfer. Power moves. Wealth moves. Influence moves. The only question that matters, is where does it move to? And who positions themselves to receive it? Stage 8 has 4 phases. They always happen in the same order. And they're already beginning. Phase 1, the power vacuum. When the dominant power collapses or severely weakens, it leaves a vacuum. Not just military, economic, cultural, and financial. After Rome fell, it took 300 years for a new organizing power to fully emerge. After Spain fell, it took about 50 years. After Britain fell, it took 20 years for the United States to step fully into that role. Notice the pattern. The transition time is getting shorter. Rome to replacement, 3 centuries. Spain to replacement, 5 decades. Britain to replacement, 2 decades. If the United States weakens severely, and the pattern says it will, the replacement window could be a decade, maybe less. That matters, because the faster the transition, the more violent and unstable the vacuum period. Phase 2, the scramble. Every collapse creates a scramble. Multiple powers compete to fill the vacuum simultaneously. They don't wait politely for one winner to emerge. They fight for position, economically, diplomatically, sometimes militarily. After Rome, the Franks, the Visigoths, the Byzantine Empire, the Church, all scrambling. After Spain, England, France, the Netherlands. The 30 Years' War was largely a fight for the void Spain left behind. After Britain, the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War was the scramble made permanent for 40 years. Right now, the scramble is already beginning. China is building the Belt and Road Initiative, not charity, infrastructure dependency. The same way Britain built railroads in its colonies to control trade routes. Russia is redrawing borders in Eastern Europe, testing the limits of American commitment. The Gulf states are making deals with China that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. The BRICS nations are building parallel financial systems, payment networks, currency agreements, trade frameworks, specifically designed to function without the dollar. This is not preparation for American collapse. This is preparation for American weakness. And there's a difference. You don't build the exit before the building is on fire. You build it when you can smell smoke. They smell smoke. Phase 3, the revaluation. This is the phase nobody talks about, and it's the most important one for ordinary people. When a dominant currency collapses, Assets get repriced in terms of whatever replaces it. This repricing is not gradual. It's sudden, brutal, and transfers wealth on a scale most people cannot comprehend. Here's what it looked like in practice. When Britain left the gold standard in 1931 and the pound began its long decline, people who held their wealth in pounds watched it evaporate. People who had already moved into dollars, into gold, into productive land, they didn't just survive. They got richer. Because the assets they held were now scarce relative to the collapsing currency flooding the market. When the Soviet Union collapsed and the ruble became worthless almost overnight, a few people bought state assets, factories, oil fields, mines for fractions of a penny on the dollar. Those people became the oligarchs. Not because they were smarter, but because they understood that collapse doesn't destroy assets. It transfers ownership of them. When the Weimar Republic suffered hyperinflation in the 1920s, a loaf of bread cost a wheelbarrow full of marks. People who held hard assets, land, gold, productive businesses came out the other side intact. Some came out wealthy. The people who held paper promises came out with nothing. The revaluation phase has one brutal rule. Paper promises collapse. Real things survive. A dollar in your bank account is a promise. A piece of productive land is real. A government bond is a promise. A business that produces something people need is real. A savings account denominated in a currency that's being debased is a promise. Commodities, energy, food, metals are real. This is not a new idea. It is the oldest idea in the history of money, and it gets proven again every single time an empire falls. Phase 4, the Reconstruction. Here's the part nobody wants to sit through because it takes generations. But it's also the part that matters most if you're thinking about your children and grandchildren rather than just yourself. After the chaos of the vacuum and the scramble, after the brutal repricing of the revaluation phase, something new gets built. And what gets built almost always looks different, structurally different, from what came before. After Rome's fall, Europe didn't rebuild Rome. It built something new, a decentralized feudal system that eventually evolved into nation-states. After Spain's collapse, the new order wasn't one empire controlling everything. It was a multipolar system, competing European powers, balanced against each other. After Britain's fall, the new order was the Bretton Woods system, the dollar, the IMF, the World Bank, the United Nations. A structured American-led architecture designed to prevent another world war. If the United States weakens severely, the pattern says it will. The reconstruction that follows will not look like America. It will not be dollar-denominated. It will likely not be organized around a single dominant power at all. We may be moving toward the first genuinely multipolar world order. Since the era before European colonization, a world where the dollar is one of several reserve currencies, where American military power is one of several competing forces, where the rules-based international order is replaced by something messier, more negotiated, more contested, that is not automatically worse. It may, in certain ways, be better, but it will be radically different. And the people who understand it's coming will navigate it far better than the people who insist it can't happen. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to say out loud. The United States is not just a passive victim of this pattern. America has the ability to influence which version of Stage 8 it enters. There are two versions, and the difference between them is not economic. It's behavioral. Version 1, the British model. Britain lost its empire. Britain collapsed financially. Britain had to be bailed out by the IMF in 1976. A moment so humiliating that a former imperial power was treated like a developing nation. But Britain survived. Britain rebuilt. Britain today is a functional, prosperous democracy with a high standard of living, strong institutions, cultural influence far beyond its economic weight, and a society that mostly works. How? Because British institutions, the courts, the civil service, the rule of law, the culture of democratic accountability held together, even as the empire fell apart. The organizing structures survived the collapse of the empire, and those structures gave Britain something to rebuild around. Version 2, the Soviet model. The Soviet Union also collapsed, but Soviet institutions didn't hold, because Soviet institutions were built entirely around the power of the state. The courts weren't independent. The civil service was a patronage network. The culture didn't have deep roots in civil society. When the economic system failed, there was nothing underneath it to catch the country. What followed was not a painful but manageable decline. It was chaos. Organized crime took over entire industries. Life expectancy for Russian men fell by 6 years in less than a decade. Democratic institutions were captured by oligarchs within a generation. Russia today is still living with the consequences. The difference between those two outcomes was not wealth, not military power, not geography. It was institutions. It was civic culture. It was the depth of the organizing structures beneath the state. And that is why what's happening to American institutions right now matters, far more than the debt number. The debt is a symptom. The institutions are the immune system. And immune systems that are weakened before the infection arrives cannot fight off what's coming. So where does that leave us? We are somewhere between stage 7 and stage 8 right now. The collapse hasn't completed, but stage 8 has already begun in certain corners of the world. The scramble is underway. The revaluation is starting. The reconstruction is being planned. By China, by the Gulf states, by the BRICS nations, whether we participate in that planning or not. And the most dangerous place to be in stage 8 is exactly where most Americans are right now. Certain that it can't happen. Certain that we're different. Certain that the pattern doesn't apply. Spain was certain. Britain was certain. The Soviet Union was certain. Certainty is the last luxury of a collapsing empire. Here's what history actually tells us to do in stage 8. It's not complicated. It's not a secret. It's what every person who came out the other side of every previous collapse did. Hold real things. Not paper promises. Real productive assets. Real skills. Real relationships. Real community. Understand what's coming structurally. Not so you can panic. Panic is useless, but so you can position. A sailor who understands the storm moves to the right side of the ship. A sailor who doesn't understand it gets swept overboard. Invest in institutions, your local community, your local governance, the civil structures around you. Because as the federal level becomes more chaotic, the local level becomes more important. This is exactly what happened in every stage 8 in history. Power decentralizes before it recentralizes. The people who built strong local structures during the chaos had something to work with when the Reconstruction began. And finally, don't confuse the end of an era with the end of everything. This is not the apocalypse. This is not the first time. This is not even the most dramatic version of this pattern that history has recorded. It is painful. It will be disruptive. People will lose things that matter to them. But civilizations survive empire collapse. Cultures survive currency collapse. Human ingenuity survives economic implosion. The question is never whether something comes after. Something always comes after. The question is whether you understand enough about the pattern to be part of what comes next, or whether you're one of the people still insisting the pattern doesn't apply while stage 8 plays out around you. 3 empires followed the 7-stage collapse. Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union. Each believed they were exceptional. Each learned they weren't, and each of them eventually entered stage 8. Stage 8 is not the end of history. It's where the next chapter begins. The only question is who writes it, and whether you're paying attention.